starting our session, which is a panel discussion on redefining healthcare sector in the post-pandemic world, and we have an eminent panel here. Let me just uh, read their names again so that audience who have joined late, they know who they are. So we have with us Dr. Alok Roy. He is the chairman and managing director of Medica Super Specialty Hospital, Kolkata. Welcome, sir. Thanks for joining us here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you and namaskar to you. And I welcome Dr. Hari Prasad, President Hospital Division, Apollo Hospitals. Welcome, Dr. Hari Prasad ji.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I welcome Dr. Tarang Gyan Chandani from she's the CEO of Sir H.N. Reliance Foundation Hospital, Mumbai. Welcome, Dr. Tarang. Thanks for joining.
Thanks very much. Thanks a lot.
Namaskar. And we have Yatish Bahal, Executive Director of Neti Healthcare. Thank you, Yatish, for joining us.
Thanks, Ravi.
Thank you. So we are going to talk about the healthcare sector in the post-pandemic world, and we are still in this pandemic situation. And I request each of the panelists to please give your initial comments on this emerging and evolving situation, and how is it affecting the healthcare sector, and how are we seeing the next few months. So requesting each of the panelists to speak for about 3 to 4 minutes each, and I also request each of us to please keep your mics on mute after you speak so that we reduce the background noise. So I will request Dr. Tarang to start, give you a visual of the situation, please.
Right. So first of all, thank you very much for having me here. And it's really been a privilege to be a part of this platform once again. So as we see the way the pandemic is moving ahead, I don't think that there is any way we can see a respite coming before at least 6 months to a year. I think by that time we all will learn the new way of life, and we will learn to live with COVID, and we'll find ways and means to manage healthcare with COVID and make it a part of the way the healthcare is. And that's the only way I look at it, and that's the only way I think we have to move ahead with. We cannot have this continue to impact our healthcare service delivery beyond a point. Yes, there is we need to take precautions. Yes, we need to make sure that we need to protect our staff, protect other patients. But at the same time, we all have realized that most of the people who are affected by COVID also, they are not highly symptomatic, and the disease has its way, the way it is for any other viruses. Yes, the infectivity is very high, but at the same time, as the virulence or the severity of the virus is not as what we have seen with the SARS. So I think the best way is to make it our friend and learn to be with it and deal with it. So there will be impact on healthcare, and there will be impact on all industries. Why alone healthcare? But the only way to deal with this, and I think humans always develop resiliency, and we have to move ahead. So according to me, the impacts will be there. We are all seeing a major impact on all the healthcare institutions, whether it is in our care delivery, whether it is in the footfalls, whether it is the morale of the people. But I think only way is that we need to change our point of view for everything. We will now need to come out of the regular way of looking at the hospital. It's how we change our mindsets, and I think that's the way to go. But so far, it's very difficult to say whether the impact will be 3 months, 6 months. I think most likely, most of us feel it will be at least 1 year plus. So that's from my end.
Okay. Uh, uh, I think Joe used that let's deal it as a friend and let's learn to live with it is the message which I got from you. May I request Dr. Alok Rai to give your opinion on the situation?
Thank you, Mr. Ravi. Thanks for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here in your seminar, which is watched with a lot of interest. Uh, when this pandemic came, none of us were prepared for it. None of us knew it. None of us knew how to handle this. So obviously, when unknown things come to you, you are scared and you are full of fear. That's how the entire community, doctors, everybody were scared. We were very, very worried how to deal with it. But we realized that between the disease and the society, the only people who are standing in between are us, healthcare workers. Of course, everybody is providing support like police and everybody else. But without doctors, this war cannot be fought. We are the frontline soldiers. When this realization dawned on us, we took a step forward and engaged the enemy. And today I'm very happy to say that though at a serious professional loss, a serious financial loss, we all healthcare workers across the country in the private world are fighting this war along with the government and along with the public. Now we are ready and prepared. The last point which I like to mention as introduction is that we are changing constantly. We did not know how to deal with it. And as time passed, we realized hand washing, we realized a lot of corrections. We made a lot of infrastructural changes in the hospital. We completely changed the way air conditioning works in the system. We changed the way we work in the system. The problem with this disease is that, unlike many other disease, which doesn't affect doctors, only patients affected. Here, both sides can get affected. Hence, the precautions have to be both ways. Now, not just for the patient. We learned that. And now we have come to realize that this battle is going to last longer than we expected. And we are prepared for it. We are changing, learning as we are walking. As we say that you need to fly a plane and construct it while you are flying it. Thank you.
Thank you. Great inputs and thanks, Dr. Alok, for highlighting the role of uh, doctors here. I think overall society and overall, like we all can see that governments are realizing the importance of hospitals and doctors big time, and every day we are reading steps around it. Uh, uh, may I request Dr. Hari Prasad to give your initial comments on the situation? Hari Prasad.
Yeah, good morning, and thank you very much for having me on this panel. One will be a little longer introduction. Ever since we started counting the number of COVID patients and the deaths due to COVID in India, a more number of patients have died because of heart attacks, strokes, and cancers, and many other diseases in the country. Somehow, COVID seems to have occupied everybody's mind, and that's become something which everybody seems to be talking about, forgetting the regular disease load in the country. And there is a reason for this. I would say that healthcare in this country has collapsed, the entire foundation has collapsed. And the reason being, nearly 80 to 85% of the healthcare in the country is actually provided by the private sector. And this 80 to 85%, which is the majority of the healthcare in the country, is not provided by the people sitting on the panel or the large network of hospitals or the large hospitals. All of us together probably constitute just 5% of the total healthcare provided by the private sector. major part of the healthcare is provided by the single doctor sitting in his clinic in a periphery, or by a small 5-bedded, 10-bedded, 20-bedded nursing home in the periphery. Now, all these have shut shop. They're scared, as Alok said, and they're worried to open up. And this has actually led to a complete collapse of the foundation of healthcare in this country. And unless we get the confidence of these people back, unless we help them to restart, unless we help them to get over their fears and help them to start practicing with the precautions that need to be taken to keep themselves safe, to keep their colleagues and the healthcare workers safe, and to keep the patient safe, I don't think we will be ever able to come back to where we were before the COVID struck us. Then all the hospitals, the larger scale hospitals in the private sector, the occupancy went down to 20%, 30%, and some even lesser than that. We're just seeing it pick up. But this is because of the scare that was created in the public that the entire coronavirus is around in the hospitals in the country. But my personal opinion is healthcare providers, hospitals, doctors know a little more about the precautions about the virus, and they definitely take more precautions than any other place in the country. So a hospital is a safer environment than any other environment in the city or in the town or in the village. So people should not hesitate to come into the hospitals. And I would just end with a survey which was conducted by BCG recently. This is the most recent survey in terms of how to get the patients back into the hospitals and make sure that they have access to healthcare. It is not just COVID, it's about all the rest of the disease load in the country, including the NCDs, which are responsible for 80 to 90% of the deaths in the country. So the 5 or 6 factors which matter to the common people are: one is they're looking at technology and virtual care, which is becoming big and which is something which the people are looking for. The second thing they're expecting is no cancellations, and if there is a cancellation or a rescheduling, there should be a fine or a penalty paid by the hospital. And then the third thing, they're looking at COVID-19 testing for patients after treatment. Now, a lot of us, what we're doing is making sure that the patient is COVID-free when we are admitting. But what the patients are looking at is they want to get out of a hospital, and before they get out of a hospital, they want to know that they are COVID-free. They don't want to have waiting times in the hospital. They want to see improved infection control protocols, and they want to make sure that COVID-19 testing is done for the healthcare workers, and all of them are safe to be in the environment. And lastly, strict social distancing at the care site. So these are few factors that the patients are looking for to get back to the hospitals. So we will have to work on multiple fronts to get the private health sector and the healthcare back on track. One is to allay the fear amongst the common people, to deliver to their newer expectations for post-COVID, which I've just highlighted to you, and also to make sure that the doctors who are running the smaller clinics and hospitals get back to work with additional precautions, with confidence, and deliver what they were delivering so far. Tertiary healthcare cannot survive or sustain without the solid foundation of primary and secondary care, and that's the current problem today. Thank you.
Excellent inputs, Hari Prasad, and for highlighting the role of primary and the secondary healthcare infrastructure. And we can see that all our bigger hospitals are overloaded with the COVID patients, but the bottom of the pyramid is lacking somewhere. Requesting our next speaker, our panelist, Yatish Bahal, to speak. And before I do that, requesting other speakers to please mute your phones, please. Dr. Hari Prasad. Yeah. So Yatish Bahal is the Executive Director of Nayati Healthcare and Research Private Limited. Yatish.
Yeah, hi Ravi, good to be back again.
Yes.
The last time when we were around, we were just entered into the early COVID phase, And then the dialogue was that, as Dr. Prasad and Alok was also mentioning, there we were directed to not accept patients on elective basis. And we were seeing a scenario where there were not enough patients, and the OPDs and anything other than emergencies had been stopped. Today there is a reversal, I would say. While again unlock 1.0 is on, but still the confidence that some of the other speakers have pointed out is missing, and the volumes in the OPD and your electives coming in remain low. But at the other end, there is a huge spurt now in the cases, especially when you look at North Delhi, UP, and Maharashtra. So Garang would sort of be there siding with me, as well as would be Alok. In Delhi today, while the government directed us now to take over beds, unfortunately or fortunately, given the sheer size, all of us now in the hospital space, all the organized players, including, and I'm sure Hari will back me on that, we've all, even Apollo for that matter, we've now allocated more beds for COVID as opposed to non-COVID, because it's also a reality. Whilst again the mortality may be low, but as Alok also pointed out, it's highly contagious. And therefore now the steps that are being taken in especially with old centers, not the newly built ones which had segregated AHUs and positive and negative pressure areas, we've had to make provisions to allow a coexistence of both COVID and non-COVID, because the sheer volume, and secondly the fact that it's going to be around for the next one or more than a year, and we have to coexist with it. So you have to segregate, and within the same facility now allow both to coexist. Take the learnings from Italy, where we don't allow the system to get overwhelmed, not allowed your non-COVID patients to become infected. What the study, BCG study, has also stressed upon, that there has to be a post-treatment COVID test prior to discharge, because the intent is that there should be enough safeguards in terms of infection safety protocols that are deployed in hospitals and facilities today in order to contain the spread of the disease. Is going up, and yet the reversibility is high. Maybe on the ventilator, if you were to go on, the mortality rates are higher, but still it is fairly treatable and better than some of the other ailments, especially SARS, etc. We've recently just yesterday discharged a 97-year-old patient from our center at Agra. We've got a direct hands-on experience, Agra being declared by the government as a completely dedicated center in the wake of the spurring numbers. And likewise in Delhi, Mathura, we are doing both COVID and non-COVID. So it's a evolving situation. A couple of 2 months ago, when the lockdown had started, we were still trying to grapple with times and see how do we remain afloat. Today, there's some better degree of idea. We are still toying and experimenting, but yes, additional safeguards have been put in place. And as Hari had pointed out, we are perhaps the safest zones to come into. Nobody is completely insulated against the spread of the contagion, but yes, there cannot be anyone else better prepared. Is costing us dearly, and which is why the primary and secondary players are suffering significantly, because whilst the organized players do still have some balance sheet available or some support or leverage, the unorganized husband-wife duo or partnership, proprietorship that was running for, they are not able to absorb these costs nor implement the infection protocols, which is a cost to us. And therefore some sort of a support will have to be made available for them if one wants the Indian healthcare sector to be really resilient, truly resilient to the onslaught of this pandemic. Ravi.
Excellent input, Satish. Thanks for highlighting the point about the numbers are rising dramatically, and the COVID beds are increasing, and the non-COVID beds are decreasing in each hospital now. And Yatish, you have highlighted the various financial constraints which this situation is imposed on the private healthcare service provider, and especially the smaller ones who are not able to sustain. And Dr. Hari Prasad talked about that many have shut the shop for now due to the uh, uh, fear factor also. So uh, maybe discuss about some of the financial challenges in this situation. So may I request Dr. Alok Roy to talk about that for the hospitals, how it is straining the financial resources. Alok.
Thank you, Ravi. There are, as Hari has said, there are very clearly three defined sectors in healthcare delivery. One is up to 50 bed hospital, then 50 to 150 bed hospital, then 150 and above hospitals. Most of us are here in 150 and above hospitals, up to 300, 400 beds. All these baskets have different challenges. Primarily, the one who has a 50 bed, he's a one who has a personal pull. He's a doctor with his personal capability and he's still pulling patients. He is still getting good 40, 60, 70% of his beds are occupied. He was down and out in the beginning 1 month, but after people start coming back, especially non-COVID patients, they start coming back to him and they are doing reasonably well. Up to 50 to 150 have gone down, but not dramatically, because they are community-based hospitals. They may not have a personal pull, but because of the community based, they're still doing 40 to 50, 60% numbers and they are surviving with difficulty. The biggest hit has been 150 to 300 bed hospital, super specialty hospital, multi specialty hospital. They have lost out on numbers up to 80%, 85%. Somebody has 20% occupancy, somebody has got 25% occupancy, nobody has more than 30% occupancy. Because all non-COVID super specialty surgery or tertiary care surgery has come to virtually standstill, especially in lockdown. Now after lockdown is getting over, few are coming in. But now on 150 to 300 bed larger setup of hospital have a bigger challenge of dealing with COVID because they are also getting a lot of COVID patients who are not going to smaller hospitals. Because smaller hospital does not have a wherewithal of dealing with them, they know it, and also that they know that care will be better. And because community is scared, they are flocking to the best hospital. So financially, the maximum losses have been initially for a single doctor hospital or a small hospital. Now it is focused very much on large format hospital. Some of us have lost in 3 months almost entire EBITDA for the year is wiped out. That means our cash flow is severely compromised. It's not just loss of business because we had to redefine the business in terms of infrastructure changes, in terms of PPE, sanitization, distance, not having enough people in the OPD. We had to control the OPD numbers. As a result of all that, there has been a serious financial losses. I don't see any that it will improve in next 15, 20 days or 1 month. Maybe as in the initially has been said by one of the panelists, probably in 2, 3 months start improving. But we have no clarity at this point of time. We are like flying a plane in the cloud. We can't see where we are going. Yes, we know that there are the difficulties, and so let's face it, we are all bracing for a serious financial impact. And there has been no help from any sector so far. There has been some help from the government, which came in the form of getting our old dues. No new support, from any quarter has come. So every private provider is on his own in this country to fend in this difficult time. Over to you, Ravi.
Uh, Great inputs, Dr. Alok. You highlighted very clearly the challenges at each level of the hospital. Uh, may I request Dr. Tarang to talk about the financial challenges for hospitals in these situations?
So, as has been rightly mentioned, I think all of us are definitely facing the financial crisis. I think there is a slightly difference in the outlook that we all are having from the various geographical locations that we are operating from. So, while I think the heat is picking up in Delhi and other states. Bombay itself right now is in the heat and has been in this situation for a long time. So I think what we have seen here is that yes, we saw the worst part of it, where we saw that most of the beds were getting moved to COVID. But now I think slowly, probably is it because of the resilience which the city always had, or whatever. But we see people and the institutions coming forwards, and then uh, the financial losses, of course, it's a double edged sword for all of us, because on one side our revenue lines have completely got flattened, and on the other side the costs have increased, because you have to take care of your people to keep up their motivation level, to support them during this crisis. You have to take care of the PPE. You have to take care of the infrastructure changes which are required to manage even a normal fever patient, because initially when a patient comes with fever, you are not sure whether it is a COVID or a non-COVID. Till that time, you need a specific kind of infrastructure. You need a negative pressure isolation. So for all those things, the costs have suddenly increased a lot. The simple levers on which most of the COs usually function, which includes the average length of stay, they all have gone, or RPOP for that matter, they all have gone for a toss. So we'll have to all, over a period of time, learn to redefine everything. A lot of innovation will be required. A lot of change in the thought process will be required to create now the new lines, so that because at the end of the day, we have to provide safe healthcare. We have to provide the best for the patients, but at the same time, we have to manage our costs also. We have to manage our sustainability also. So either ways, I think there has been a hit. But as I said, in Mumbai, from what I see, it's not. It's getting, even if I see a 1% change in moving towards better, I think we are 1% better than what we were a few weeks back, in our attempt to move back to the normal. Because there are certain things which will happen only in hospital, and as we rightly heard, that right now the people have to be just assured that it is safest. The hospitals are taking the maximum precautions, and they are the safest place to be in. So with this, I think there will be financial burden. It will last for a very long time. But I still feel that healthcare industry will be one of those industries which will be bouncing back before other industries, because the other industries right now are just going through the crisis. They will take a very, very long time to come out of the economic crisis. But hospitals, given the nature of the fact that we provide healthcare, they will be able to come back. But yes, it will be a long process, and it will need a lot of thought process to find out ways and means to reduce the cost, to still increase the revenue, so that your EBITDAs are able to just manage. But yes, right now, I think everybody has to find ways and means to give a safe, affordable healthcare, and at the same time ensure that we have the requisite changes done in our systems to prevent the patients from the infection. And at the same time, start thinking about alternative revenue lines strategically. The dependence on technology again will be high, but again, technology comes with its own price. So that means another dip into the finances. So it's a thin rope we are all walking on. And I think at this stage, it is a little premature to come out with a thought process on how to increase. But yes, the line of thinking has to be towards innovation.
Great inputs. Thanks for highlighting the various aspects of the challenges. And thank you for highlighting that health care will be perhaps recovering faster than other sectors. Uh, may I request Dr. Hari Prasad to talk about how long is the recovery path financially for our hospitals?
I'm very tempted to say this for a country, roti, kapda, or makan, and after that it is healthcare. And in India, private healthcare plays a major role, and is in fact providing almost, as I said earlier, 80% of the healthcare. So the well-being of the private health sector is critical for the country, but nobody seems to be bothering about it. Everybody seems to be looking at private healthcare as somebody who is making a lot of money, has a lot deep pockets, and need to shell out money to help the government in this crisis. Now, the private sector is not looking. I can talk on behalf of the entire sector because I've been listening to all of them. I've been talking to many of them. The private sector is not looking at profiteering in the COVID crisis. All we are saying is, don't kill us further by your pricing and the structures that you're creating to handle the COVID. If we break even, we are more than happy to give all our beds and get fully involved. We have a responsibility towards COVID, and we will fulfill that responsibility to the fullest extent. But what is happening today on the financial front is they are expecting us to deliver more for less. That is, deliver better care, deliver care with better infection control measures, all of which cost more money at a lesser cost. Now, this doesn't add up somewhere. So, unless we develop a synergy between the different stakeholders, it's not going to work out. We're never going to meet at a common point unless all the stakeholders come together and create a win-win situation for everybody. The country needs the private sector. That is understood and acknowledged by everybody, including the government. But after that, what? How do we support the private sector to come back? It has taken a beating. It's taken a huge beating. And unless the 4 P's come together, and we are not going to be able to sustain or come back as quickly as we should come back. And when I say the 4 P's, it is the public, private, and people participation, which is required to make sure that all the stakeholders get what they want, and it create a model which is sustainable. And if this happens, then I suspect that it will take a minimum of 6 months for us to start breaking even, and after that another year to reach the levels of the pre-COVID times. But I think there's a huge amount of support that is required from the government. But unfortunately, we haven't received much. And although I must appreciate the fact that the government has been talking to us, taking a lot of inputs, listening very patiently to us, but unfortunately, nothing has come out in terms of action. And we are looking for support from from the government side on multiple fronts. And more importantly, we are part of the war against COVID, and all we are asking is to help us be partners in the COVID war with a break even and not pushing us deeper into a financial crisis. Ravi?
Yeah, excellent inputs, Dr. Hari, and thanks for highlighting that issue of the government rates, which I think are not working out for many hospitals. Requesting Yatish to please talk about what support you think that the government can provide, and requesting other panelists to please mute your phones, please. Yeah, Yatish.
Well, Ravi, if you were to look at what measures the government have taken, they have basically aided our cash flows. So, in terms of the receivables that they've ordered, that if you're MSME registered, well, it doesn't cover most of us because we don't come into that criteria. So, we are not covered, and therefore the 45-day receivable period doesn't fit in. But having said so, okay, it's good for a larger audience. But even then, what are you doing? The money that was due to us or that's been stuck in the system, you've given that to us. So, okay, we'll tide over payment of salaries, vendors, we'll push some of the creditors, that's fine. But what has happened is you've stopped us from accepting business in the initial few days. Now, because of the entire paranoia that's surrounded around healthcare, one is a bit scared. People who are vulnerable, they don't want to come into an hospital fearing they may get a hospital-acquired infection. So, the flows are low. Yes, the sector is bound to be resilient and would be one of the first to be back on track because, as Hari said, roti, kapda, makan and healthcare. Yes, we'll be back, but what happens to the intermittent period? At best, all hospitals would, their EBITDA was a month's revenue at best, post interest or whatever that was getting added to the reserves. You got us to be virtually out of business for 2.5, 3 months. And it's not as if the fourth month unlock one and we'll be full. So the revenue is going to take a fair bit of time. It's a long journey. It's as good as commissioning a greenfield facility today. We don't know how much time will it take to sort of reach that penultimate capacity. We don't have the liberty of some of the other industries where they've gone in for a shutdown, where the labor has gone back. We as the emergent and emergency service providers are required to have a full setup available. It requires a cost. It's not just supported by one doctor, it's the team that works. So we have fixed costs. And currently that fixed costs are not getting covered at all. Likewise, there is, and we were doing this, Alok has been there on the FICCI committee, wherein we are saying to the insurers today, see, one of the basic problems that we are facing is, in addition to whatever capex modifications that all of us are doing, there is a regular operating cost of the PPEs. Earlier, the consumables would get disallowed, but in terms of the overall bill, it didn't matter much, and we could absorb it, or even if they were charged as a non-payable to the patient, they would happily do it because it wasn't a significant figure. Today, largely, especially the government panels, they've very categorically stated that the PPEs, etc., would not be charged to the patient. So where do we charge it to? Because the argument is that, well, okay, aren't hospitals supposed to maintain hygiene? Yes, we are. But the level of hygiene or infection control that is there or was in a OT, you cannot have it across the facility. Today, you have had to ensure those sort of setups around because to know the degree of severity and the contagious element of the virus. So all of that has a significant element of cost. It requires the panel as well as the TPS to realize that there is a significant upswing in the form of the disposables and the consumables, which need to be factored into either in their premium. When the actuary needs to take that into account, all these years when those costs weren't so high and the regular premiums were coming in, they have to build that in, or they build in an extra premium for COVID. Because, the patient, we are treating them with the best of our ability. We are not compromising on the quality. So why is it that we should be asked to compromise on the price? And that is one of the major reasons the basic centers are not able to afford this, because if they don't take these measures and people expect them to take these measures, they can't sort of sustain the operations. If they don't, there is a spread. There are new policies that are coming in from the government. Delhi, for instance, there is a mandatory directive now that all hospitals more than 50 beds have to reserve 20% beds for COVID. Not all hospitals have a chest physician or a pulmonologist attached with them. What do you do with such setups? How will they manage COVID? A multi-speciality can still bring in, but where are they supposed to manage? And the reason those beds are not getting filled is that, they're just going to give you an isolation. Tomorrow, if the case complicates and you are required to intubate someone, they're supposed to refer that patient out and there are no beds. Where are you supposed to refer those patients out? And that is why people like us, okay, we have right now a spare capacity, and again, we don't want to make money, and we've opened ourselves up. Okay, we see the plight of the people, and that's what's happening. But at least then don't kill us on the cost front and say, no, you have to do it at a certain rate. Either you support us, because it's not just about the treatment also, Ravi. The clinician who's supposed to treat that patient typically shouldn't be going home. We are providing them alternate stay arrangements, because otherwise the people back home are stand exposed. Likewise, when the patient is about to get discharged, there is a certain degree of quarantine period meant for the clinician and the entire team. So virtually for treating the same number of patients in the hospital, you require 1.7 times the staff, if not twice. So where is that cost going to get absorbed? Because the revenue is not that much. There is not that much billing that's going to happen. Costs definitely are piling up. So the gap is there. By giving us our TDS in advance, or which is already due to us and should have got processed, but you've done it only for individuals with refunds up to 5 lakhs. So what happens to corporate like us? So there are no support to that extent. You've given us our receivables. What about the immediate billing? There's no clarity on that. Is there a SOP available? There's an entire industry. 80% of India's health is done by private sector. So, some sort of a support. We are also extending this over. We can't lay off our staff. They also need the requisite, resources to have a day-to-day functioning. They're there on the front line. They're risking their lives. So they need the support. The hospital also doesn't have an endless coffer. At best, we'll have to go back to our reserves. But what about those who don't have the liberty of such reserves? They will get wiped out completely. So some sort of a support, a financial through aid and not a loan, because the loan has to be refunded. Some sort of a aid package for the healthcare sector has to be worked out. That is need of the hour, because without the healthcare sector, there is no way that you can fund this pandemic and fight this pandemic. Some corporates are using their CSR arms and they may be well funded. But most of the others like us are private limited companies where we generate the money from the business or the services that we extend. And that is what keeps us sustained. Today, the sustainability is a challenge. And therefore, via this channel again, and we've used all the other forums, we are representing there has to be a monetary package for the healthcare sector. It's need of the hour and very much imminent. Thanks.
Yes.
Ravi, if I can just add on to what was just said. We are living in a paradoxical world. If you look at, at least in Delhi, 20% of the beds are reserved for COVID patients. But if you look at Maharashtra, 80% of the beds are reserved for the government. And what happens in this 80% beds is, it is not just COVID. Even non-COVID patients, the rates are regulated. So even if you have a CABG patient, there's a package which is described and you're expected to treat at that package. So what are you doing with the private healthcare? How is it going to sustain if you're not going to reserve 80% of the beds and then also have price caps on the non-COVID patients? We're not just going to sustain. There's going to be a situation where we would not be able to treat COVID, which is the need of the hour. The private sector has to be involved in treating COVID. There's no go for the country. The acute care beds, the majority of acute care beds are in this country, and as time goes by, we're going to see more and more acute cases coming up. And the private sector is the place which has to provide the care. And if we are going to kill the private sector with policies like this, I think it's going to be the people who are going to suffer more than anything else. So I think policy making and decision making is, because it is on both the central and the state lists, concurrent lists. We have regulations coming from the center, we have regulations coming from each state, and we really don't know what is happening. There's just so many regulations coming, we don't know what's happening.
Sure. I'm requesting Dr. Tarang to speak because I understand she has a meeting, and so give your remarks, Tarang, on this way out from a what is the policy support I think the government should be providing, and how do you deal with this situation? Yeah.
Thank you, Ravi.
So thanks, Ravi. So I'm hearing my other fellow colleagues. I completely, we are all in the same boat. But I think at some point of time we have also the government also has a very difficult task at hand. It's not only our country; it's most of the countries where the entire healthcare system has been strained. It's also the whole. Many countries' government have collapsed, and it's not. Their job is also tough. Tough because they have to manage the expectations of the public also. The public is expecting that everything should be free, because the levels of anxiety and the levels of stress amongst the people is so high that everybody is reacting in a very different situation. One of the reasons that most of the countries have opened lockdown is also not because of anything to do much with COVID or controlling COVID, because we all know that the peak usually comes in the countries after the lockdowns are opened. Most of the countries at least have shown that trend. But the lockdowns have been opened because otherwise it would lead to a law and order situation. People will be out of jobs. So while I agree, all of us are in a very, very difficult state, but we have to also agree it's like a vicious cycle. The government has to manage the expectations of the people. The people are getting probably cut in the job, salary cuts. So they are finding difficult to fund the healthcare. So it's a vicious cycle. Usually, though, countries where the reserves are very high, probably they can pump in lots in the private healthcare, in the government healthcare. But ours is a country where the policy makers are also walking on a very fine line. Nonetheless, I think the best way I personally feel to make these policies, to give a suggestion to all those who are in the position to make the policies is that, of course, we all know in private healthcare sector also, there are times where things happen in hospitals which are not acceptable to people, which if we also sit and audit are not acceptable to us also, that this should not have happened. So in such a situation, we need to have a voice in the policy making decisions where we can, some of us whose voice can be heard, where we are fair to the people also and understand the plight of the government also. Ours is a developing nation. It's very, I mean, I know we all would love and want that the government has to fund in the private sector. But where the government is also, we have to see the funding of the government also, no? With all the income sectors going at all-time low. The funding in the government also has to be there to take care of the common man who will probably after a few months will not have job, will not have food to feed his family. The farmers, our agricultural part of our country, who will take care of them? So I'm sure the policy makers also have their share of plight. But at the same time, I think I completely agree. We need to have some fair policies. We need to have, may not have caps, like for example, 80% reservation for government rates. But we need to look, even if we are having those caps, we need to have a fair cap. The cap is not for us not to earn. The cap is to ensure that there is a standardized costing done. It's not that every hospital, one hospital can charge 2 lakhs, the other can charge 20 lakhs for the same thing. Now, in this time of crisis, obviously, when people are not able to earn money to feed their homes, how will they be able to absorb such a diverse pricing from healthcare sector? So there can be a standardization of pricing. I always see it as standardization because there are the countries I have been and I've worked like country like Singapore. There is a standardized pricing. No hospital can charge beyond a particular range. So there has to be some way of standardizing the price so that it is fair. The hospitals can sustain themselves because at this point of time, sustenance should be the main goal. And I think for most of us, it is the main goal. At the same time, it should look fair to the common man also, because we need to understand their crisis also. So the policy makers need to have inputs from the private healthcare sector. There should be, the policies need to be made on data. The billing, for example, if CABG is done, we can take the billing data of 6 hospitals, private hospitals, 16 hospitals, and see what is the average billing. So it's when we say that we are all providing the best of the healthcare, quality healthcare, then the billing also, if we are so proud of the fact that we all provide great infrastructure, we provide the great infection control mechanism, we provide the best of the doctors, then our bills cannot range so there should not be such a big variation in the billing. And if there is a variation, if there is any standardized structure, of course, with all our inputs, which can bring about a fair deal for everybody, I think that's the right way of making the policy. At least that is what I have learned in my experience at Ministry of Health of Singapore, where you make policies, but it is fair to all. But that job is not easy. It's definitely, I think the most difficult part right now is of the government to play this balancing role. I know the certain policies are harsh, certain policies we can do well, but I think the best way is standardization will have to happen. I think whether all of us accept it or I think there is no option of not accepting. It is either accepting it or accepting it with retaliation and with angst, but we will have to accept some degree of standardization in our pricing. It will continue to hit our revenues, but at least it will open up, it will at least provide some way to open up the healthcare to the common man. Because if today, as a patient, I don't feel there is a difference in the pricing of any hospital in this area, I can go to any hospital and I will go and access healthcare. Right now is that like we are all again going back to kindergarten level of healthcare. We will have to start teaching people to coming back to hospital. And at that point of time, when they're already vulnerable, mentally unstable, they have had casualties in their house, family, neighborhood, I think we'll have to give the common man also that ease of comfort to enter any private hospital without worrying about variation in prices, at least of the key packages. But yes, there has to be fair deal given to the private hospital. It's not that they should be asked that, okay, you have put this rupees 500 charges for what? When you are saying that 500 is towards the infection control. People should also be made and educated that yes, if a doctor is treating you, he is bound to wear a PPE. The PPE actually caused this, but if the hospital is appropriating it, the cost, and putting a small amount of it, then it has to be accepted because it is for your own safety. Because tomorrow, if that healthcare worker is infected, if he's wearing PPE, you will be protected. So I think some degree of education, some degree of involvement of the private sector, and making the policy decisions in the interest of people, so that people as well as the provider, and so public provider, both are not only they participate, but they are both comfortable. But yes, I think lastly, this is not the time where all of us will get any respite by any kind of blaming to the government. We'll have to find a way along the government and together with the government only for our interest as well as the interest of a common man.
Sure. Great point about what are the challenges for the government itself in this situation, and requesting Dr. Alok Roy to give your, I think, concluding remarks of this session. Almost we are reaching the end of the session. Alok ji.
Thank you, Mr. Ravi. We all have said the same thing, that these are difficult times and we are going through really bad times. We have no money. We are scared. We have prepared, invested on infrastructure. We have invested on training, and we are facing very, very uncertain future. I would like to say at this point of time two things. First, the government, what government can do. At this point of time, government can come up like what they have done in MSME, some kind of soft loan to the hospitals where it can take care of their cash flows, as Mr. Vahal had said in the beginning. That would help a lot of private hospitals across the country, which are very important for this fight. that to manage the COVID, we need private sector, little bit of some cash coming from the government, not as a freebie, as a soft loan to be taken back in 2 years, 3 years, would go a long way in sustaining the private hospitals, number one. Number two, I would like to say that the private hospital has to come to their core efficiency. They have to come to their core expertise. Like we are running a one in one place 500 hospital. Now 500 bed hospital which was doing a lot of things, a lot of profitable, non-profitable things. All those non-profitable things must be stripped off, must be shaved off. We must come to our core strength and do that very, very efficiently. That will bring the cost down. That will maximize our revenue, our efficiency. That will maximize our ability to deliver both in terms of public good, private good, fiscally good. All these three baskets will be addressed. So I think with that, we would like to say that time to be scared is over. Time to get ready and face this monster head on and do it with a full preparation and best arms you have in your sling. Thank you very much.
Excellent points, Dr. Alok, and I will I will request Dr. Hari Prasad to close the panel and with your remarks. Dr. Hari Prasad.
Yeah, thank you, and it's been a wonderful panel, and we've spoken about almost everything in healthcare. I just wanted to say, it's always easy to complain and say things difficult, what the difficulties are, but it is always important to come up with solutions. And I think the solution is very simple. Private healthcare grew on its own. Private healthcare was successful because of the least amount of interference in terms of multiple factors involving tariffing, pricing structures, and stuff like that. So what we would request the government to do is to leave the private healthcare alone. Private healthcare is responsible enough to respond to the pandemic, make COVID a notifiable disease, set a fair price tariff for COVID, and then leave the private health sector alone. We will manage it. And the second thing is, to replying to my co-panelists, I think it is not possible to standardize the tariff cards for all the hospitals simply because of the multiple variables that go into actually starting a hospital and operating a hospital, because there is a cost of capital, and the cost of capital of different hospitals varies, and the expected returns varies from different hospitals. The operational efficiencies, the operational costs, the size of the hospital, the multiple variable factors. So I don't think it is very appropriate to say that we would standardize the cost of a procedure across all segments of all the hospital, because it's not possible. Financially not possible, and it is not something which is going to happen. So all I'm requesting the government is fix a fair tariff for the COVID patients, and we are there to respond. We will treat any number of patients that come to us, and we will respond to the crisis. But leave the private sector alone. Don't start putting caps on the other non-COVID treatments, or reserving beds, or reserving unnecessary beds which are kept vacant for nothing. So we are a very resilient sector. We will come back, but only thing we request is leave us alone, and we'll help you, and we will help ourselves.
Great. One line message both from Yatish and Tarang. Yatish, summarizing one line, conclusions, please.
Well, we are there to support the government and would want an equal amount of cooperation from there. And as Arifai had also said, allow us to function in our own domain. One additional point, we've also pointed this out before the healthcare group, and that is something important. There's a lot of migration of nursing that has just got on. These days, we need to retain them and not allow this to go on, because we would be requiring this manpower. The 50, 100 beds which are not functional are need to be back on track. And if this drain is allowed to happen, we are going to face a severe challenge. So via this panel again and this portal, we'd like to appeal to the government to take in the steps and not allow the drain to happen for the moment. We need them back home, especially the trained ones, the ICU ones.
Yes, very important point. Closing remarks, Dr. Tarang, one line or two line comments to close this.
Okay, so from my side, just from where I started, I think all of us need to focus on, most importantly, to move ahead. There is no way we can now, it's a war. And in a war, people will have to work together, aligned. And if in a situation of war, we can't have all the soldiers marching in different direction. So if we consider government as the general of the war, then all the soldiers have to be aligned with the government. You can't take it as any other situation. In the normal scenario, yes, things are different, but this is not a situation where we need to react, because otherwise all of us will collapse together. So we need to be aligned, we need to be together, we need to be fair to each other, and at the same time we need to be innovative enough to look at what is our new normal and where we should move towards as a part of our new normal, whether it is in terms of how to manage our financials, whether it is in how to manage our people, and whether it is how to manage our entire existence. So I'm sure there is only one way. The way is collaboration, and way is working together. Nobody will listen to us at this point of time what we want. It is what the country want. That's it.
Great. Excellent point. Collaboration is the key. Dr. Alok, one line summary remarks. Dr. Alok.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I mean, everybody has said the same thing. I think this pandemic is something which we have not seen ever in our life. Let's get on to the bandwagon. And as Hari has said, whether private has always survived, but today it is not survival of the hospital, survival of the world and the community at large. Let's all get together and beat it up. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So
thank you so much, Mr. Ravi. Thanks all the fellow panelists, and
Thanks.
it was a great exchange of ideas. Good.
Excellent inputs, and thank you, Dr. Tarang, Dr. Alok Roy, Dr. Hari Prasad, Dr. Yatish. Namaskar to you. Thank you so much.
Namaskar. Thank you.
Thank you.